Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. A question has come to me about the ruling of black dye, dyeing the hair black for men and for women. And here is my answer. For women, there is no difference of opinion among any of the traditional scholars, past or present, which said that it is forbidden for women. Therefore, for women, dyeing your hair in any color is permissible in any color that tickles your fancy. Regarding the men, there is a difference of opinion about dyeing their hair black. Now, first of all, did you know that it is actually a sunnah? It's a way of life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and recommended in Islam for people who have grey hair to dye it. The common thing we see a lot of the traditional Muslims doing is dyeing their hair with henna. Henna is a reddish orangey type of dye, which is fine and good, and it is part of what the practices of the Prophet, peace be upon him, his companions used to do. But they didn't just specify henna. It's only because henna was considered to be a type of remedy for the hair. So it was more like a medication along with remedy, along with just dyeing it and looking good in their custom and cultural view. So it's not necessarily, it's not a religious sunnah to use henna, even though the Prophet ﷺ sometimes used it. The second thing I want to say is, okay, in relation to other colors. So it is good for men to dye their hair, if it goes grey, with any other color that is earthy. Now, earthy is more of a color that is neutral colors, and that is because a Muslim is guided in Islam to look modest and to look presentable, but not outrageous or to stand out, in a crowd. That's part of modesty and humbleness. Now we come to the idea of black dye. Is it permissible for men? Is it forbidden? There is a difference of opinion among the scholars about the color black for men. The majority of the schools, I'm talking about the Hanafi, Maliki, and the Hanbali school, and a majority of other scholars view dyeing the hair black for men is makruh, disliked. And there is a minority view among them who say it is permissible, mubah, neutral. The Shafi'i school consider it to be forbidden. What is their evidence? The evidence for those who say it is forbidden is based on two main authentic hadiths, and then their interpretation of it among their jurists. They use the first hadith, which is authentic, about Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's father, Abu Quhafa. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his companions entered Mecca and opened Mecca, Abu Quhafa, the father of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, was over 90 years old, and that's a key word here. He came to embrace Islam with the Prophet, peace be upon him. It's a beautiful story. And his hair was completely white, like a white cloud, they described it. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to his companions, go and dye his hair and cover all that white. And then he said, avoid the color black. This is the question mark. Those who said it was haram took this to mean that it is haram to dye black. But the response from the majority of the scholars, and those who said especially that it's just permissible and not just disliked, was that they said what the Prophet, peace be upon him, meant over here was because Abu Quhafa was very old, and had he dyed it black, then it would look like it would subject him to insults. For example, children, other people pointing and talking about a wrinkly old man with a dark black beard did not look like a presentable form. Therefore, he said, avoid the black to safeguard him from being insulted. The second hadith they use to say that it is haram, that is forbidden, is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is also in Sahih Muslim, where he talks about the future where a group of people, a movement will come out of men who were called later on the Khawarij. And was an extremist group who came out, and he describes their characteristics by saying that they used to shave their hair completely, other than the time of Hajj, and they would dye their hair dark black. So those scholars who said it was haram took this to mean that the Prophet ﷺ is saying this is haram. But the majority of the view took this to mean that this is just merely describing their features. It doesn't mean that if you have those features you're going to hellfire or you're an extremist. It's just describing what they would look like, because we also shave our hair in Hajj and Umrah, and no one says that you're being extreme. And no scholar said that shaving your hair is haram at all in other circumstances. Some had the view that it is better to do it only in Hajj and Umrah, but there's nothing to say that it's haram for men to shave their hair at all. So that was the reply to that. To add to this, the scholars who say that it is permissible to dye your hair black, which is the majority, and as I mentioned, some say disliked, better to avoid it, is that some of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to dye their hair black. Among them were Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Jarir radiallahu anhu, Uqba ibn Amir. All of these are great, highly respected companions, as you know. And Uqba ibn Amir actually has a poem in which he says, نُسَوِّدُ أَعْلَاهَا وَتَأْبَى جُذُورُهَا. We dye our hair black from the outside, but its roots refuse to stay black. In other words, when the hair outgrows a little bit, you start seeing the white hairs showing up. So this is an indication, of course, how we knew from their narrations and their stories that dyeing your hair black is more correctly viewed as permissible or disliked if there is no need to do it. For example, you might have a job in which you need to look more professional, or there is a uniform. I mean, white hair can also be professional. I'm not saying that it's not, but in some instances you may need to look a bit more presentable, and it's required to be, for example, with hair that is dyed. Or you are a person who travels a lot, or is just has some maybe personal habits, or can't, you know, or it motivates you to have your hair black, and so on. So these are common reasons that makes you dyeing your hair either permissible or disliked. So my brothers and sisters, obviously, if you're not comfortable with that and you still want to go with your school of thought or the views of the scholars that you follow, then the safer option for you is to avoid the black. However, once again, there is, as you heard, valid opinions, valid evidence that dyeing the hair black for men is not necessarily forbidden. It's only one minority view, and that if you do see someone doing that or you hear that, do not impose upon them your view or say that they are sinful. That would be haram, because there is a valid difference of opinion about it. That's my answer. I hope that answers your question. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.